We're so young, but yet so talented. And I think that if we embrace the challenge every day, if we embrace the opportunity every day, we can go places. And so it's gonna be a tough road and a tough challenge every day. And that's the good thing about it. That's what we love about the game.
One team that is a fairly big unknown heading into the 2024 season is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They made a lot of moves this offseason to try and get the team back into contender category. The two biggest ones signing Russell Wilson from the Denver Broncos and trading for Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears. And the reason that Pittsburgh went out and acquired two new quarterbacks this offseason was because last year they did realize that Kenny Pickett, their former first-round pick, was not going to be the long-term answer at the quarterback position. Pickett, who started 12 games last year, only had 6 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and in his first 2 years of his career, he's dealt with a multitude of injuries and also has not just shown the requisite production for a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And the Steelers viewed that position as the biggest thing that was holding this team back from really reaching some success. Although they have not had a losing season since 2003, it's now been 8 years since the Steelers have won a playoff game, and just repeating the cycle in the last several years of just sneaking into the playoffs and being the number 7 seed and then getting blown out in the first round, I think is getting a bit tiresome for the team and also just the fan base. So instead of just running things back for the 3rd straight season and probably either winning 9 or 10 games, I think with what the Steelers did this offseason, they do have a wider variance on what this team can do next year. And for a team that has just been slightly above average for almost a decade now, I do think it's warranted to try and bring in some new change and see what actually ends up happening. And the man that's going to get the first opportunity to improve the Steelers offense is going to be Mr. Unlimited himself. And at this point in his career, I do not know what Steeler fans should expect from Russell Wilson this season. If you just look at a stat sheet, his numbers looked fairly good last year. 66% completion percentage, over 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns to only 8 interceptions. But if you take a long, extensive look at the Broncos offense last year and the totality of Russell Wilson's season, it was not fairly impressive. And Sean Payton really maximized what he could do with Russ last year. A lot of checkdowns, a lot of playing a hero ball, and a lot of Sean Payton putting handcuffs on Russ because he didn't trust him to really maximize the offense. So personally, I do think Wilson's stats last year are a bit of a fugazi, and I've really argued that the last time that we've really seen peak Russell Wilson was all the way back in 2020 with the Seattle Seahawks when he set a career high with 40 touchdowns and was in the MVP race. So at this point, I just view Russ as a solid veteran quarterback and somebody who's just been around the block, has a lot of experience, but I don't view him anymore as somebody that's going to raise the tide of the team, carry an offense, make play after play to help a team win games. He's more of a serviceable guy that will take care of the ball and just keep your offense afloat. And for some teams, and maybe the Steelers are one of them, that is all they really need to be a true competitive team every single week. But then you go to the backup quarterback position with Justin Fields, who the Steelers traded a 6th-round pick to acquire, and he is practically the opposite of Russell Wilson in my opinion. You don't know exactly what you're going to get from Fields on a week-to-week or even down-to-down basis. He can break a few tackles, run 40 yards, and take it all the way to the house, or it could be late on a throw, it's behind a wide receiver, and it's intercepted. You get a lot of flash plays with Fields, but you also have a lot of disaster plays. But when he's humming and at the top of his game, I do believe he could have this Steeler offense performing higher than it would with Russell Wilson under center. But again, if it's a down day for Fields and he cannot complete passes consistently, the Steelers offense is going to really struggle and kind of look like it did last year at times with Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky. I can say pretty confidently that I think in week number 1 and early on in the season, it is going to be Russell Wilson who gets the nod. And I think the reason for that is you just kind of know what you're getting with Russell Wilson. And because of that consistency or lack thereof for Justin Fields, I just don't see how over a 4-week period in training camp, day after day, Fields being able to string together multiple practices to really overtake Russell Wilson on the depth chart. But with that said, if the Steelers do come out of the gate slow, if Russ is coming out and dinking and dunking and the offense is not performing the way it should be, Fields is going to get his opportunity, and I do feel like that has a pretty decent chance of actually happening. I will say the one thing that does undermine that possibility is just the first 9 weeks of the Steelers season next year. The schedule does not get hard until the final 9 games. They play all 6 of their AFC North games in the final 9 games of the year, and then 2 of the other teams that they play are the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. That will probably end up as the hardest stretch of the entire 2024 season for any single team in the league. So there is a chance that in the first 8 weeks of the season, Russ is doing just the bare minimum to hold on to the starting quarterback spot. But as the team approaches the second half of the year playing better teams and better defenses, it does not turn out super well, and then Justin Fields is given the reins to end off the year. But regardless of who actually ends up starting most of the games for Pittsburgh next year. The infrastructure around the starting quarterback I do think is very, very good, including the addition of new offensive coordinator Arthur Smith, whose scheme I think fits really, really nicely with both of these guys' skill set. Wilson and Fields love to use their legs. They love to get outside the pocket. And what Arthur Smith loves to do is utilize the run play action, run some option plays. So when I made a video around 7 months ago about the Steelers and breaking down what they should do in the offseason, I mentioned Wilson and Fields as two really good candidates to run and function in that offense. So the fit between quarterback and offensive coordinator I do think is going to be strong either way. And then you go to the weaponry and the offensive line, and once again the Steelers have done a good job of building up both of those units. At running back, the two-headed monster of Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren is one of the best in the league. You get your power back with Najee and your speed guy in Warren. The team also added in Cordero Patterson this offseason, maybe to be like the return guy with the new rules. But you go to the pass catchers and you have George Pickens as the X wide receiver. Despite the up and down quarterback play in 2023, Pickens had a breakout year, 63 catches, over 1,100 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And when he's focused and on the field, he's one of the best contested catchers in the league. Pittsburgh did trade away longtime wide receiver Deontay Johnson to the Carolina Panthers, but he was replaced by two newcomers, and Van Jefferson and Roman Wilson, who they drafted in the NFL draft. And one thing that I've learned from the Steelers over the past decade or so is that when the Steelers draft a wide receiver, there's a fairly good chance that he emerges into being a very good player. So I'm fairly bullish on Roman Wilson emerging into a very productive player. And then of course, to round out that unit, Calvin Austin III is there, who is a great deep threat, has probably some of the best speed on the team. You go over to the tight end position and it's Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington. Washington, who they drafted in day 3 of the draft last year, is one of the best blocking tight ends in the league already. And Pat Freiermuth I just view as a very solid tight end. He doesn't generate a ton of production, but he's also not one of the top targets on this offense. The last few years, he's really been like the 3rd or 4th option for the offense, but whenever he does get the ball, he does make the most of it. And then lastly, the offensive line. That's been one of the biggest stories for the Steelers this offseason. That unit was really, really bad 2 years ago. It took a step forward last year with rookie tackle Broderick Jones stepping in right away and being a very good player. But again, this offseason, they added multiple players, including 2 in the draft I think are going to be very, very good from day 1. The versatile left tackle and Troy Fautanu out of Washington, and then Zach Frazier, a center from West Virginia. Fautanu was the team's 1st round pick, and now the Steelers have a fantastic tackle duo with Fautanu and Jones, and Frazier was seen as either the best center in this class or the 2nd behind Jackson Powers Johnson, and he's just a mauler in the run game, a very physical player, so he fits the exact identity that the Pittsburgh Steelers love to play. So you add those 2 new starters into a line that already has Broderick Jones and James Daniels and Isaac Suamalu, and I do think Pittsburgh could have one of the best offensive lines in the league next season, just like that. Now quickly over to the defensive side of the ball, the Steelers did make a few acquisitions this offseason, headlined by taking linebacker Patrick Queen away from their rival, the Baltimore Ravens, on a 3-year, $41 million deal. They also got a new cornerback too in the Deontay Johnson trade in Dante Jackson, and another starter in the secondary in Deshaun Elliott to pair with all-pro safety in Minka Fitzpatrick. But I feel with the Steelers defense, you kind of know what you're going to get every single season. You got multiple star players all across the unit, led by TJ Watt, who's one of the best players, period, in the entire league. The Steelers have had a top 10 scoring defense in back-to-back seasons, and with them bringing back most of their starters from a year ago, and then upgrading a couple of positions on the unit as well, I expect the Steelers defense to be around a top 10 unit again. But all this to say that in the end, none of this roster talent really matters. Having a very solid coaching staff led by Mike Tomlin, who's viewed as a top 10 coach in the league, doesn't really matter either, because the majority of games are won and lost by the quarterback position, and that's not going to magically change in 2024 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And at some point, whether it's early in the regular season, late in the regular season, or even in the playoffs, Pittsburgh is going to need Russell Wilson or Justin Fields to make plays for the team to win them a game, and it's going to be up to those guys to show that they can do it. And if they can, the sky is truly the limit for the Steelers in 2024. But if they can't, Pittsburgh could be grooming another starting quarterback by this time next year. But I want to know what you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers and what you expect from them next year. Do you view them as a true contender in the AFC and the AFC North? Or do you think once again their quarterback position could be the downfall of the team? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But subscribe to the channel if you are new. Drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.